Time frame, images of a generation. We grew up in a simpler time. We sang.
Say, kids, what time is it?
M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. We laughed.
Hello, boy.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
We cried.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
We fought. We loved. We were attacked.
Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air.
Our flag was still there. Now these memories come to life on posters that can be yours today. Go to howdyboomy.com for your copies today. That's howdyboomy.com. howdyboomy.com.
Welcome to the Howdy Boomy Show. It's a gorgeous day in July, hotter than hell. Global warming, I have no idea. I don't know who's causing it. Remember they used to blame you for using aerosol hairspray? I have no idea the hole in the ozone layer. I don't know where that went. But we're to blame for everything that goes on. Global warming, it's not Mother Nature. Somebody's got to make some money off of it somewhere. And I guess if you invest in whatever the Biden Foundation is investing in, you might be all right, or any of these woke foundations. I was born in 1947. The oldest baby boomer was born in 1946, ironically in Buffalo, New York, where I am in the area now. Back in 1967, that would have been the first presidential election that you could have voted in, 1968, because at that time you had to be 21 to vote. And I remember that year compared to this upcoming year with election because there are some similarities. The most glaring one is there's someone named Kennedy running for the Democratic nomination. Now, back in 1967-68, Lyndon Johnson was president of the United States. Vietnam was going hot and heavy. It didn't look too good. Many Americans were being killed. The public relations was terrible, especially after Walter Cronkite, who at that time was the most trusted man in television news, maybe on television period, came back from Vietnam and said it's a quagmire there. It was one big mess. There were riots in the streets all over the United States for civil rights. His Great Society was a failure because it destroyed the black family. So you had a guy by the name of Eugene McCarthy, who was a representative, and he went on the peace plank just to get rid of our presence in Vietnam. Now, he was unknown. The Democratic nominee, as President Johnson dramatically announced on television that year that he was not going to run or seek the nomination of his party, was Hubert Humphrey, then the Vice President of the United States. Everybody was expecting Robert Kennedy to run, but he didn't really want to run unless he knew he could win. He figured bucking downtown was a little bit too rough. But Eugene McCarthy ran on a peace plank to get us out of Vietnam. And the first presidential primary was in New Hampshire, as it always was. And he garnered 42% of the vote, which shocked people. And Robert F. Kennedy saw that and said, hey, wait a minute. I can win this thing. And he jumped into the fray. The 1968 campaign. So you had Eugene McCarthy, Robert F. Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and a couple outliers. And we all know what happened. Robert F. Kennedy, along with Dr. Martin Luther King, were assassinated in 1968. Hubert Humphrey was coming on strong. I think if the election was 1 week later, he might have won because they were beginning the withdrawal and peace talks, etc. But Richard Nixon, along with his running mate Spiro Agnew, a Maryland governor, won the election in 1968. So that was the first year that the baby boomers can vote. And I'm looking at this year with an incumbent president who really looks like he's not up to the job. You wonder who is president of who's running things there. I just read an article where Susan Rice, who is the big honcho in that White House, who was a well-known liar for the Obama administration. She was on TV for a week lying about things. She's running the show. God help us if that's the case, but I don't know how bad it can get. But I'll tell you, looking at our current president of the United States, he doesn't have full command of his facilities for more than 10 minutes, if then. So we've got he is running. Robert Kennedy Jr. is running, and he's polling at 20%. Now, unlike the media back in the day, this media protects the President of the United States and the wrongdoings that he's doing. But what are they doing? They're attacking Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So it's going to be interesting this year when they start running primaries and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. starts polling very, very well, what the Democratic Party is going to do. Well, Joe Biden's going to tell him what to do because he is a control freak. He's been in public office for 40, 50 years, and a lot of people owe him favors because he's purchased. He's bought and sold, bought and signed, sealed, and delivered. He sells influence. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to run parallels between that election and this election and how it's going to work out with the Democratic primaries on one side and the Republican primaries on the other. There was no Republican primaries, so to speak, back in '68 because Nixon basically had it sewed up. So this election is going to be interesting. We'll talk about the Democratic Convention, which I had part of, which was a total chaotic event. We're looking at digging up stuff on Trump, all this stuff with the documents. And I'm thinking to myself, every president, I guarantee you, Obama, Biden, every president has papers somewhere. He has no idea where they're at. Everyone. There's no doubt in my mind. But they got to get rid of Trump because he's a threat. People, he's like us. He doesn't speak like a politician. We would probably do the same thing that he does. When you see a problem, you try to solve it like normal people do. But the politics, there is this very, very deep state. And you saw how Biden's controlling the Department of Justice. And the DOJ is with the FBI, the CIA. The media is backing him. It's a corrupt empire that he's got there. But they got to get rid of him. And I'm thinking to myself, there were 5 Chinese spy balloons traveling across the United States this year. What do you think was most important? What do you think was the most danger? What do you think would cause the most problem to our country right now? Is it some papers from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, stacked in a garage? Or is it spy balloons flying over our country right now? You don't hear anything about that. You don't hear anything about the newspaper or the papers, presidential papers found in Biden's cars, garages, whatever. Can't do it. It's all Trump's fault. The Cubs aren't going to win the pennant this year. That's Trump's fault. Yankees are in a slump. That's Trump's fault. Global warming. It's Trump's fault. Anything wrong, it's got to be Donald Trump. I see where a former FBI agent came out and recorded a 14-minute video unleashing the names, the amounts of the Biden administration, the Biden family being bought by Chinese people, $100,000 to $150,000 a month to influence them in the Chinese affairs between them and the United States where Joe was bought and sold for. The FBI told him they knew about it. They said not to mention the Biden name, but he came out and he made this 14-minute video because now he fears for his life. Things are starting to come out, and the press really can't hide it all that. You're going to start to see slowly but surely stuff is going to unwind, and they're asking questions now that they would never think of asking years ago. Hopefully, the video will reveal some things. It's going to be shown shortly. You're going to see it probably only on Fox. You're not going to see it anywhere else. But if their names and they can prove it, it's going to be really, really interesting how the press tries to bail Biden out of this mess. Tomorrow I'll tell you some interesting stories about the Democratic Convention in Chicago, which was in 1968, which I, at that time, was a resident. I'll tell you some stories. It was amazing. Amazing what went on there. I hope you have a great day. I hope things are treating you well. Remember to vote. The only way we're going to get this country back is to vote. Everybody else demonstrates, riots, people shoot. God, it's just amazing now. Birthday parties, graduations, you take a gun everywhere. At least you do if you're a certain ethnic group. I just don't understand it. God bless you. Go to howdyboomy.com. Go to the Howdy Boomy Show on YouTube. Watch it every day. I make a fool out of myself every day, but what else is new? God bless you. God bless the United States of America.